Thursday Night Football, there's a lot at stake in this game. The Ravens need to win so they can stay in control of the AFC North and to keep pace with Kansas City for the 1 seed in the AFC. And if Baltimore loses, the winner of Steelers-Browns this Sunday takes control of first place in the AFC North division. Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Bengals, they need to win this game so they can keep their playoff hopes alive, because that loss to Houston was really shocking and devastating. I don't think too many people, myself included, saw Cincinnati losing to a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud with the Texans team that had multiple injuries that they were dealing with going into that matchup. Baltimore needs Lamar Jackson to have a superstar performance in this game. All right? Last week, his performance against the Cleveland Browns is a big reason why many people can't trust Lamar come playoff time, because in big moments in the postseason, he tends to play small. In the regular season, he's really good. We know he has one of the best win-loss records in the regular season since he took over as the starter at quarterback for the Ravens. But come playoff time, he doesn't play his best football, especially in big moments. And the way that he fell apart against the Cleveland Browns is a large reason why people have the sentiment about Lamar Jackson not being able to get it done in the postseason. In the fourth quarter, he threw a terrible interception that resulted in a pick six to Greg Newsome. And even before that, before going into halftime, he threw an interception when he was trying to hit Rashad Bateman down the sideline, deep downfield. And I don't know if the ball got tipped at the line of scrimmage, if it was miscommunication, or if Lamar just flat out underthrew that thing, but he had a really bad performance against the Cleveland Browns, and he needs to come out here and prove to everybody why he still is in the MVP discussion and why he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The last time these two teams faced off, the Ravens won 27-24, and Lamar Jackson played pretty well in that game. But he went up against a Joe Burrow that was dealing with a nagging calf injury, and Joe Burrow wasn't fully healthy. Well, Joe Burrow, over the last couple of weeks, has been playing some of his best football all year long. And this game is big because it kind of has a playoff feel to it. All right? Baltimore, they lose this game, they no longer are in control of the AFC North. And for Cincinnati, a loss here drops you to 500 on the year. You're 5-5, and the way Houston's schedule looks for the remainder of this season is pretty easy. Cincinnati, Baltimore, this is a must-win game for both of these two teams. You know, you look at Cincinnati's offensive line, really disappointing, because they have invested a lot of money into the offensive line the last two off seasons, and their investments aren't paying off. You thought that signing Orlando Brown would solidify your offensive line, but this offensive line got pushed around by the Houston Texans defensive front. And Joe Burrow, he had some really questionable decision-making late in this game as well. I mean, if we're going to hold Lamar Jackson accountable for his late-game interception against Cleveland, we got to do the same thing with Joe Burrow. But you see, Lamar Jackson, though, when it comes to the Lamar versus Joe Burrow debate, the reason why Joe Burrow has been able to have so much more success than LJ in the postseason has been because Joe Burrow takes good care of the football and he's pretty efficient. You see, when you're in games like this, mistakes get magnified. Lamar Jackson, anytime he makes mistakes in the postseason, he's not able to overcome them. Meanwhile, you look at Joe Burrow, he can make several mistakes and yet still put the Bengals in position to win this game. Lamar really needs to outplay Joe Burrow in this game. I'm not hating on Lamar. I love Lamar. Y'all know I love Lamar Jackson. I said that before the season he was going to win MVP this year. And I called the Ravens the best team in the NFL a couple of weeks ago. And a lot of you guys got on my case about that. You said, JT, you really think Baltimore's the best team in the league? It's way too early to give them that right. What makes them better than Kansas City or Philadelphia? I believe that the Ravens have the most complete team in the NFL. They got a great defense, and they got a really good offense when Lamar and company are playing well and everybody's executing. But the Ravens, they've had a good amount of success throwing the football this year, but this is still a team that their wins and losses are mostly going to be dictated on their ability to have success running the football. And there's been several times this season when Baltimore has gotten in trouble when they haven't had the run game at their disposal. And we saw that against Cleveland. Outside of that big run by Kean Mitchell, the Browns defense held this Ravens rushing attack in check. Yes, they are way better throwing the football than what they have been in previous years. But Baltimore's success on offense still stems from their ability to have success on the ground game. And there was a report that came out not too long ago that said that the Ravens plan on increasing Kean Mitchell's workload. And he definitely needs to get a lot of action in this game. He's really similar to Devon A-Chain. As a matter of fact, I think they're pretty much identical players. If they look at themselves in the mirror, you see Devon A-Chain and you'll see Kean Mitchell both pointing at themselves saying, you, like that Spider-Man meme. And the good thing for the Ravens is that you're going up against a Bengals defense that's 30th in the NFL in rushing yards per game allowed. I mean, the Houston Texans, Devin Singletary ran for over 100 plus yards on this defense, and Houston struggled to run the football all season long. And that's with the bad offensive line as well. The fact that the Texans were able to have their way on the ground game against Cincinnati should give the Ravens a lot of ammunition to get back to the basics, what they've been accustomed to doing over the last couple of years, and that's running the ball down your throat. And then they beat you over the top with play action to Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, OBJ. You see, last week, the Browns got the Ravens off their game. Kind of off their rocker in a sense. It became a game where Baltimore got a little bit too one-dimensional, and it costed them. Bengals, meanwhile, offensively, their offensive line is going to get tested against one of the best fronts in the NFL. The Ravens really know how to get after the quarterback. Joe Burrow and company, they got to make sure that they're able to get the ball out fast if this offensive line can't hold up, because you can't go into this game having the same issues and allowing the same thing up front to happen to you that occurred last week in your loss to Houston. And Joe Burrow, when he's healthy, has normally had pretty good performances against this Ravens secondary. A Ravens secondary that is pretty good, but at the same time, they have inconsistencies, and sometimes they give up big plays over the top. If you're Baltimore defensively, you got to limit the amount of big plays that you give up downfield to Joe Burrow and company. There was a 64-yard touchdown that he threw running outside the pocket to Jamar Chase. And Joe Burrow, he's a lot more talented and skilled than what he gets credit for, in my opinion. His mobility has really improved over the last couple of seasons. This dude is doing spin moves, breaking out of sacks, giving people the joystick. Joe Burrow, he's going to show up for this game. We know that. Is Lamar going to show up? It doesn't matter about the stats that he's put up over the last couple of weeks, because the Ravens have still been able to win despite him not having incredible performances statistically. And I'm not knocking him for that. But I am knocking him for his performance against the Browns. And if Lamar is going to be able to get the Ravens to the Super Bowl this year, this is a game that he needs to come out and show out, and he needs to be able to outplay Joe Burrow. Once you get into the playoffs, you don't really have a lot of opportunities to get away with making boneheaded decisions that Lamar Jackson had last week against the Browns, and everybody's going to have a good defense once you get into the postseason. The Ravens, they do need to run the football to be successful, but at the end of the day, this game is still going to come down to how consistent is this passing attack for Baltimore going to be. And last week, it looked really volatile against the Cleveland Browns. Right now, the Ravens still, in my opinion, are the best team in the NFL. When you look at this roster top to bottom, they don't really have holes. What's gotten Baltimore in trouble has been when they haven't been able to execute. And that includes Lamar. And that includes these receivers sometimes struggling to have consistency catching the football, like we saw in their loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where people try to put that loss all on Lamar. I'm not putting all of the losses that the Ravens have had this year on Lamar Jackson, but I am going to say that he was a large reason why they lost to the Browns. He got outplayed by Deshaun Watson in the second half. This is a prove-it game for Lamar Jackson. If the Ravens are the team that some of us believe them to be, and we believe Lamar Jackson to be capable of leading this team to a Lombardi trophy, this is one of those games where he needs to come out and shows the whole entire world that he's him. He's Lamarvelous. Meanwhile, for Joe Burrow, you lose this game, it kind of makes it a little bit harder for you to stay in the playoff hunt with how tough the AFC North has been. Now, you probably still are going to be able to get some wins in this division against Pittsburgh and the Browns, but with how tight the AFC has been this year, the Bengals' slow start is kind of starting to haunt them a little bit. Normally, they are able to start out slow and get back on track, but even the Buffalo Bills are on the outside looking in of the playoff race right now. This is a game that neither team can really afford to lose, but the Bengals really can afford to lose this game more than the Ravens can. At least the Ravens will still be in prime position to make it into the postseason. Meanwhile, for Cincinnati, like I said earlier, Texans have a really easy schedule. And they're probably going to roll through that thing. They're really hot right now. C.J. Stroud looks like the best rookie quarterback in the history of the National Football League. Cincinnati needs to win this game to stay in the thick of things. And with the win, they will be only one game back of Baltimore for the number one spot in this division. And you get to play Pittsburgh, and I believe you got another matchup with the Browns coming up. So if you win out and you beat Pittsburgh, you win this game and you're able to beat the Browns, you could easily win the AFC North again. But that's if you win this game. And I don't think the Bengals are going to be able to pull it off. I got Baltimore. Baltimore, like I mentioned at the start of this, they played their best football at home. They destroyed the Detroit Lions. They dismantled the Seattle Seahawks at home last week. And their loss against the Browns, that was probably one of the worst performances that they've had all season long. I expect Baltimore to bounce back in a major way, have no home for the advantage, and I believe that Lamar Jackson is going to have a big bounce back performance, and the Ravens win this game, and they stay on pace with Kansas City for the number one seed in the AFC playoffs. Let me know who you guys have winning this game down in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this episode of the JT Sports Podcast, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Remember that we're not just a YouTube channel. Every episode of the podcast is available in audio format on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. If you enjoyed, we would greatly appreciate it if you give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Share this episode with your friends, family members, and acquaintances, and I will see you guys shortly with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.